Right, I think we're good to start. Hello everybody, I'm going to move over to this side quickly. Thank you for attending, thank you for coming. I do like to walk around a bit, and also I'm quite conscious I'm probably too short to stand in front of the laptop and you won't be able to see my face, so I'm probably going to stand over here and I might move around a tad. Can everybody at the back hear me okay? I've got quite a loud voice anyway, but we all good? You can hear me? Good stuff. Great. Well, look, thanks for coming. My name's Mike, as you can see on the screen. I'm Sales Director for CV Library. We often talk at a number of these events, and we've been here to this event now for the second year, and we like to share some of our insights at CV Library. So for this particular presentation, we're talking about the recruitment trends for this year. So we surveyed a number of recruiters, and we're going to share those results with you, and then we're going to digest those results in the second half of the presentation as well. There might be a few things in here that you're quite interested to take away with you, so if you want to take photos of the slides, feel free. If you'd like me to email you a copy of the slides as well to take away, then I'm happy to do that. You can pop over afterwards, and I'll be more than happy to send it over to you as well. So hopefully there's going to be some interesting information in here and quite a lot of takeaways for you guys today. We'll hopefully end with a Q&A at the end if we have time, and we'll see how we get on. So we're going to start the presentation by having a quick look at the current market. And you guys probably don't need me to tell you that it's pretty tough at the moment. And what we do know is that unemployment is at its all-time low, which is fantastic because we've got more people in work than ever before, but also very, very tricky for recruiters and businesses who are looking to recruit, looking to grow and find the right talent for their businesses. We also have a low wage culture in the UK as well. From the 66 million people in the UK, around 10 million of those are reported to be on a low wage. So we have an underskilled workforce, which is, not helping with driving productivity. And I think also we're probably all sick of hearing the B word by now as well, right? But there's absolutely no doubt that Brexit has had an effect on the market, both from a candidate point of view and also creating that nervousness within employers and businesses around hiring and maybe taking risks as well. So these are just some of the things that are facing us at the moment in the current market. So what we wanted to do was ask recruiters, what current challenges are you facing right now? And what we could see that came out on top, and no real surprise, is that real lack of relevant talent in the market today. And actually, recruiters are having to work harder than ever before, I feel, right now, to really find the right people and go out and actively search and find candidates for these roles that we're working on. Even when you look at CV Library statistics, if we look at our own data, the number of CV searches being performed on the site has doubled to the figure that it was last year. So recruiters are engaging with searching and hunting and finding candidates a lot more than they have done previously. You can also see that recruiters are struggling to target passive candidates as well. And we're going to talk later in the presentation about that a little bit further. Lack of time to search is a big one. Comes up all the time at the moment. Loads of people that I speak to, they'd love to be able to use a tool where they can go and hunt and search and find candidates, but they just don't have the time to do it. And that's evident in here as well. 1 in 4 not having the time to search for candidates proactively. Lack of resource comes in next to 18%. Again, very common. And the lack of time to actually screen candidates also. And when we know that time is a big issue right now, and you can see there that time crops up a couple of times. But time really is a big problem for people. And so we asked people, what are they doing during their day? What are they spending their time doing? And we saw that over 2 days a week are being spent sourcing candidates. Up to a day each week is actually spent just sifting through irrelevant CVs that are coming through via applications, via technology and platforms and job boards that people are using. And also over 3 days a week are spent just on screening candidates. So we can see from this as an example, there's physically not enough time in the week, right? There's not enough days in the week to perform all of these things. But also for many of us, these things are in addition to other job duties and other things that we're doing during the day. It's not always the sole focus of somebody's job to be doing these things. So time right now seems to be a real issue for recruiters, certainly the ones that we spoke to and surveyed. So what are people doing right now to try and speed up the time to hire? Well, what was quite interesting, I thought, and what came out top was telephone and video interviews. And I want you to really ask yourselves, how much of this are you doing? Is this something you guys are also looking at and you're now undertaking? Because we're all guilty of delaying bringing people in to see them. We look at our diaries, we're busy for the next couple of days. It's now falling into next week, but Barbara's on annual leave, so it's going to have to be the week after. And it really can stall how long it takes to engage and talk to a candidate and identify if they're right for the position. So have you thought about that first initial stage being a telephone interview to kick things off? Have you looked at things like video interviewing, using Skype and so on to engage initially? And that is now helping to speed up the recruitment process and saving people time. Removing application forms. This is something I'm going to talk about later on a separate slide. But I think a lot of organisations are now identifying just how lengthy some of those processes can be. And also, are they always relevant for certain types of positions? Do we need those application forms in order to accept an application? And some companies are now, as you can see, I think that's high. I think for 1 in 5 now to be recognising that they're removing application forms entirely is a big, big step. And we're going to talk a little bit further about that. But again, I want you to think about that with your own processes as well. And also now using technology to screen candidates. And a large part of that will be the use of ATSs. And again, when we come to digest the results of this survey later, we're going to talk about ATSs quite a lot. But a lot more now are starting to use technology to help to screen candidates. And it's all about saving time. If you're using job boards, I'm sure many of you in this room are using job boards. Is your job board helping you to save time? How can your job board help you to save more time? Are you using all of the products that you've got available? And I see it an awful lot, even working at CV Library, with people that buy products and don't use it. They don't use them. They don't engage to find out exactly what they could be getting that they've already paid for. So are you utilising your job boards properly? Are you using all the tools that are available to you to save time? Okay, CV alerts, for example, but also within your ATS as well. So ask those questions to your suppliers, talk to your account managers, find out if there's anything else you could be doing to save yourself more time. So we know that technology is something that people are very conscious of and investing in and using more and more. But actually 1 in 10 don't have the right technology to actually speed up the hiring process at all. However, nearly 90% of people we spoke to plan to use technologies in the next year. And those technologies look like this. Social media coming out on top at 83%. And I think that's quite interesting because, it's social media. I think companies are now recognizing it's a really good way of getting in front of candidates, a really quick and easy way of getting in front of people and showcasing your brand. So it can be used for that brand awareness that is a big focus for employers, and we'll see that as the presentation goes on. But also in many cases, it's going to be free as well. So, you can understand why that's going to be a popular option, right? That will also help with targeting those passive candidates as well that we know from the previous slide that recruiters are really keen to get in front of and engage with. Application tracking systems is absolutely no surprise to me. I've probably seen this more in the last year than I've ever seen it before, with employers and recruiters saying to me, we're investing in an ATS, we're buying an ATS. We're now re-looking at where we're spending all of our budget. We're now looking at where we're spending our job board budget because we need an ATS. We need that functionality to be able to save time and streamline our whole process. So that's absolutely no surprise to me that comes in at number 2. And we're going to talk more about those as it goes on. Video interviewing, again, is high up on the list that we mentioned a second ago, that people are going to be investing in and using a hell of a lot more this year. Artificial intelligence, we're going to talk a little bit more about. Artificial intelligence is using technology to help you save time, to help screen candidates, to help find candidates that you may not have found yourselves. Chatbots, so think Alexa, think Siri, ways in which candidates can engage with chatbots, and those chatbots can actually extract information that you can then use moving forward. So it might be asking initial screening questions, gathering information, getting sort of standard information from those chatbots. And actually, candidates are really willing to engage with them. So this is something that's cropping up more and more. And actually, 10% of people saying they're going to be using chatbots, I think is quite high as well. And a small percentage of gamification as well. So this is using game theory and design as an interview stage process, rather than your traditional kind of CV and cover letter. So, no surprises that percentage is pretty low. It's quite expensive to do. So we put the spotlight onto ATSs. And actually, ATSs continue to be the one-stop shop for people. There are loads and loads of benefits of using an ATS. Okay, so job posting, sharing your jobs online to multiple channels very quickly. having all of your candidates and your talent pool in one place, creating that seamless hiring experience for candidates. But actually also, job boards are having to evolve and work with ATSs more and more. So to give you an example of something that we're doing at CV Library, we're integrating with near enough all ATSs in the UK. And it takes a long time and it's hard work to do that. But one of the things, for example, that we're doing when we're integrating with ATSs is we have a latest CV, new product that we have, where we can look into your talent pool and say, you received John Smith as a candidate 2 years ago. We have a much newer and updated version of that document. And what we can then do is pull that CV through from CV Library into your talent pool and update your record. And when you think about it, candidates, they engage with job boards often. They log in regularly, they update their data, they might change their contact number, they might update their document, they may change their address, they may change their salary requirements. We hold all of that information. And so often we may have a more up-to-date record than what you may have within your ATS. And obviously that data gets old. So that's just one thing that we're doing as an example where we're working in conjunction with the ATS to make your lives easier, to speed up the process, to give you fresher data. So if you're using an ATS, you should speak to them. Are they integrating with your job boards? If they're not integrating with your job boards, why aren't they integrating with your job boards? Why aren't you getting the benefits of all of these things that are being done? So if you are using an ATS, when you go away today, have a chat to them. What are you doing to integrate with the job boards? Because you should be using these type of functionalities, Moving the spotlight onto artificial intelligence. So using AI, and actually application tracking systems are now using AI an awful lot more. AI is saving you time, okay? It's taking work away from you and doing some of these mundane tasks for you. It's also looking at things that you may not have necessarily looked at. So it's looking at candidates that you may have missed. It's looking at alternative keywords, alternative suggested phrases or names that people may have called themselves, for example, to bring CVs through that you may not have necessarily considered or you may not have necessarily seen. And doing this is adding lots of benefits to recruiters. Lots of recruiters are seeing the benefits of this already. Like anything that's kind of computer-led, anything where a computer's making a decision for you, obviously people are going to be a little bit nervous about that, and that's fine. But some of the benefits that recruiters are seeing from this is it's speeding up their time to hire. Okay, they're getting CVs suggested to them and brought through and pulled through to them that the system is saying matches what you're looking for. Okay, it's also helping with the screening of the CVs. And it's also removing that unconscious bias as well. It's taking away that human element of unconscious bias to a degree. It's looking at the document, it's looking at the CV in the whole and saying this is the candidate you should be looking at. It's also understanding job hunter behaviour as well. And this is really important because what it can do is it can understand what journey certain types of candidates take. It will understand at what point a certain type of candidate from a certain industry may typically look to move. It understands that a sales executive performs that role for this period of time, then typically goes on to apply to be a sales manager, team leader, head of sales, and so on. It understands candidate behaviour. So it adds huge benefits with that. And also improves the candidate experience as well. It increases the communication with candidates, which we all need to see. So there's still quite a lot of people that feel that the automation worsens the experience, but still a lot of people that are saying we're seeing the real benefits now from using artificial intelligence, and certainly ATS is using it too. So a very quick slide on dealing with unconscious bias. There's still 80% think that unconscious bias will never really be fully removed from the hiring process. And 1 in 10, the good news is 1 in 10 are actually going to be focusing on diversity this year. And how they're going to do that is they're going to be training their hiring managers. They're going to be hiding certain protected data on the documents. They're going to be hiring diverse teams. And they're going to be using that technology that we just spoke about as well, actually taking that human element of unconscious bias away and letting the computer make that decision. Let the computer suggest candidates that on paper would be the perfect fit with their experience, qualifications, and skill set. So what were the top recruiting priorities for 2019? So no surprise that building talent pools for the future came out on top. I think that's pretty obvious. I think with the way the market is at the moment and the shortage of talent, I think that's probably going to be expected to come out number one. So people being more proactive, finding candidates, building their talent pools. Developing an effective employer brand came out just short on second. And I think a lot of people are going to do that through social media that we mentioned earlier. You could see how high that was for people that are going to be using social media a lot more this year. Employer brand continues to be a strong trend that people want to be focusing on. And improving the candidate experience as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But actually, that could be anything. That could be the candidate experience from the second that you pick up that phone and engage with them and arrange that interview, or it could be the online experience of them applying for a job and the process they have to go through to actually get in touch with you to apply for that vacancy. Targeting passive candidates came in at number 4 as a priority. And actually, your job boards can help you with that as well. You should have those conversations with your job boards. Job boards hold a lot of data, large amounts of data, large amounts of passive candidates that they have access to. So you should explore that. And especially if it's coming out this high at number 4, 43% said that that was going to be a focus. That's something you should think about alongside using your social media and your other channels in order to target passive people. And a very small number on GDPR. I think most people have now done what they need to do with that, but there's still a few that are conscious that things need to be done. So how do we measure success in the current market? How do you guys measure your own success? Well, no surprise to see that we're still measuring success on the quality of the actual hire. The candidate experience, I think I'm pleased to see coming out at number 2, and also then looking at the cost per hire and the time to hire. And what I want you to ask yourselves, and the reason I put these questions on here is, when we're talking about success and measuring success, I want you to ask yourselves about your application conversions and how do you guys actually measure your success? Do you know how many people click on your jobs and read your jobs before they apply? And what does that number look like? Is that number high or is that number low? Is there something in there that you need to be thinking about? Because it's taking 40 candidates on average that read your job for one to click apply and want to find out more, okay? So you need to understand those type of conversions because therefore there could be an issue with your application process that needs addressing. Or also there could be an issue with your copy. It could be an issue with your offering. Is the job advert written correctly? How's it compare to other companies in your area, other companies offering the same type of roles? What about what you're paying? Is it competitive? Is it enough? Yeah? What's the reason why your conversion is so low if it is low? Are you even aware of what your conversions are? And you really should be. And that's a good measurable for you guys to work from. Do you know what your average cost per hire is? A question that we ask all the time at CV Library. What's your cost per hire? Don't know. No idea. You should know that. You should absolutely understand what it's costing you to hire an employee, what it's costing you through the sources that you're using. Because again, in times when we're not just trying to cut down time, businesses are trying to cut down spend. They're trying to streamline. They're trying to look where they can cut and save money. And if you don't understand what your cost per hire is and you don't understand where you're spending that money, you should do. And then you should then be looking at alternatives. You know, are you spending too much on agency fees? Can you cut that down? Can you look elsewhere? Could you source more? Do you have the time to source more? What technology have you invested in? What job boards do you use? Could you look at alternative suppliers? Are you getting good value for what you're spending? So you should absolutely understand and measure yourself on these things, including your cost per hire. And are you losing money from hires that haven't worked? Absolutely, right? Probably everybody is. And therefore, how much are you losing from hires that don't work out? How much is that actually costing your business for people that you hire that leave after a week, that leave in their first 3 months, that leave in the first year? And are there gaps in your process that therefore need to be addressed? Do you need to look at your onboarding? Do you need to look at the process that you put candidates through when you bring them on board? What process do they go through and where is it falling short? Is the problem at the start of the process when you bring them on? Was the job explained properly? Did you talk to them enough about exactly what they were going to be doing? Why did they leave after 2 weeks? Because the job wasn't what they thought it was going to be. So there's plenty of things that we can measure ourselves on, but there's also some questions in there that I think you should ask yourselves also as some takeaways. So what does an efficient end-to-end process look like for this year? So I've put attracting and screening candidates. So some questions to ask yourself is, are you potentially missing out on good candidates? And AI certainly helps with that, but start thinking a little bit outside the box with what you're looking for. You know, are you looking at different industry types? Are you looking at different titles, different things that people could call themselves? Are you really looking at different backgrounds for people that actually may be successful in this type of role? Are you looking at people that are doing the job now? Where did they come from? Where did they start? What background did they have? What training did they go through? So are you missing out on people that you could potentially be considering that you're not? How efficient are your current attraction methods? What sources are you using? Are you maximizing them, as we mentioned earlier? Are you getting the best out of them? And are you making the most out of the technology that you're already using? So if you are using job boards and you are using ATSs, like I mentioned earlier, don't be afraid to ask them for their latest developments, their latest updates. What's coming? What are you doing? What's new? What are you doing to help me? What are you going to do to help speed up the time to hire? And they should all be able to give you those updates. You know, we send out quarterly emails, for example, to our customers. This is what we're working on. This is the development we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is where it's going to save you time. And those are the sort of things you should be aware of and making sure you're using the most of the technology that you've got. You're paying for it, right? So you should absolutely make the most of it. So a streamlined application process. When we did the poll, 60% think that application forms are no longer necessary. I think that's massive. I think that's really high. That's a lot higher than I thought it was going to be, especially off the back of some of the conversations that we have over the phone. I really thought that would be lower. 55% of people believe that a CV and a cover letter does provide enough information, and 58% of people think that an application should take less than 10 minutes. And what I want you to ask yourselves, and listen, I completely understand that in a lot of cases, these things are taken out of your hands. There are often processes. Application forms can't be changed. They can't be shortened. And often you have to do what you have to do, and you can only work with what you're given, right? But where you can make those changes and can make some analysis, I really want you to think about whether you can gain enough from a candidate CV and a cover letter. And often when we're working with corporate businesses, the application forms can often be very, very painful. And when you talk to candidates about what their biggest frustrations are when they're job searching, when they're hunting for jobs and they're applying for jobs, application process, every single time, it's too long, takes too long. And actually, a lot of candidates will abort. Now, I know what a lot of you will say to me, and what a lot of people do say to me is, well, if they're not willing to fill out the 12-page form, I'm not interested in hiring them, right? They've got to be willing to fill it out, got to be serious. But what we have to remember is we're in a very, very fast-moving industry. We're in a candidate-led market right now where they demand the very best. They demand the quickest experience and the best experience. And then what you'll actually find with people that go through and apply on application forms on your own career websites and external, the number of people dropping out is rising and rising and rising. And it's now around 60% of people click apply to your job, do not continue with that form. They abort and they go elsewhere. And that almost comes back to the question I asked a minute ago. What does that look like for your competition? What does that look like for the businesses in your area? How quick is it to apply to a job with a competitor than it is with yourselves? But I want you to really think about whether you could get enough from a CV and a cover letter than needing that full application process to happen and take place. And one of the things I also want you to think about is the use of mobile and mobile devices these days. Every single person in this room will have a mobile on them, I guarantee it. Some of you are on them now. Some of you are itching and can't wait for me to stop talking so you can text your mate back about what you're doing tonight. And we're on them all the time, right? We're using them all the time. We use our phones more than we've ever used them, right? We do our online shopping, we buy clothes, we can book holidays, right? We've got online banking. Job searching is no different at all, okay? People are searching for jobs on the go. 50% of traffic from CV Library, when you think of the huge audience we have, 50% search and apply for jobs via their phone. So what you have to think about is, what does your process look like from a mobile device? Have you tried it? What does it look like to apply for a job from your phone? And some of these application forms and processes are extremely lengthy, very difficult on a mobile device as well, even more so if you don't have the mobile version, or you don't have an app, or you don't have a mobile version of your website. You are losing a lot of traffic, you're losing a lot of applications, and you're losing hires because the experience isn't what candidates demand, which is the very quickest and the very best experience. So I want you to think about that, and I think there's a lot of takeaways from that, and thinking about the forms And there's a particular company in particular, and I won't name any names, but at the moment where we have almost a 20-stage process, and there is a reason why hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are interested and they do not apply. It needs to be quick. People are applying for jobs, you've got to remember when they're on the go. They're on the train, they're on the bus, they're sat at their desks in their lunch break, they're on the go, they need a quick and easy access to apply for jobs. So take that away and think more about that because it's very important. Also, how good are you actually communicating with candidates? How long is it taking you to go back to an applicant, even if it's an email that says they've not been successful and why? But how long is it taking you to respond to a candidate? We spoke earlier about how long it's taking to book that first stage interview in. Is it taking a week to book that first stage in? Could we be looking at things like the video interviewing or the initial telephone conversation just to identify the quality, just to identify if we should take that any further? But also communicating with offers. Whilst you're thinking about making an offer, and you're thinking about whether you should, and you're umming and ahhing, and you've got to wait for John to get off his holiday in 2 weeks' time, somebody else is moving. They're offering, they're placing, and they're finding the right people. So what do your timescales look like? What do your processes look like? And are you missing out on people because of that? Hopefully a few takeaways in there. Offering a job to your candidate also. 89% of recruiters believe they know what the most attractive part of a job offer is for candidates. And one of the questions I've put on here, which I think is quite important, it crops up quite a lot, is do you actually know what that candidate wants? Think about the conversation that you have with that candidate when you first make that engagement and you first talk to them. Because money is always going to be a key factor for most people, I think we'd probably all agree. But it's not the be-all and end-all, and it doesn't mean the most to everybody. There's a lot to be said for a work-life balance, the perks, the opportunity to work from home, the flexibility that you may need from certain times to time. And those are the things that you should really understand. What motivates that candidate? What's driving them? And does that fit within your business? And are you playing to those strengths, or are you presuming? And a lot of people presume. Also, what's making your offer unique? Why should they join your business? Why would they join your business over the company over the road? And that's also something that you need to think about, having your key USPs of what it's like to work for your business. What are they going to experience when they join? What should they expect? And why is it so good to work for your business? Have a unique offering to come and work for you. And then it comes back to that question I asked earlier of how long are you then taking to make your offer, and are you losing people because you're taking too long to do that? So a few questions to ask yourself in there when offering to candidates also. So a number of the key takeaways from the findings and the survey that we did to recruiters. So there's a number of trends that are shaping the market, including current record employment. We need to understand how these are impacting our hiring efforts, and we need to consider the tools that are going to help you save time and make sure that you're utilising those tools properly. Communicate your priorities with your partners, communicate them with job boards, communicate your priorities with your ATSs, talk to your suppliers. This is what I'm trying to achieve. What have you got for me and how can I use it better? And ensure that you follow some of these things that I've mentioned in the presentation, some of these end-to-end processes that you should look at right from start to finish, from the second that candidate clicks, I'm interested, to the point you place and beyond. We do have a stand here today to come and see us over at stand 7. They're relatively friendly. They'll say hi, they'll talk to you if you would like to. There's also a white paper that you can download as well. So if you want to take a photo of that, please feel free to.